subjects you would think is actually where do we draw the line? Where is it okay? When is it right to keep following government rule, as it were? And where does that overstep into God's rule, God's authority? Probably something that we haven't still got right today. Every Christian hasn't fully understood, and we probably won't fully understand that. Where is the line? Because sometimes it will probably turn into something like Christian nationalism, where it's all just rooted in the country with a bit of Christianity thrown in. I hope today we'll get a clear understanding that obviously it's God first, but God honouring the authority of government that he has put in place. Not that God's saying that this is perfect in any way, because it is humans and we're all imperfect and we're all do silly things. Even governments, that would be a surprise to you, wouldn't it? And MPs and all sorts. So that's what we're going to look at today, is how do we submit to earthly authority in the right way? I think most of us do spend probably all our lives under some sort of authority, a manager, a landlord, a local council, a government. Obviously, most countries would be under a government, a school, a workplace, and even in ordinary family life, there are people whose decisions affect us, and our lives are affected by what those people, those decisions are. And probably, if we're honest, that's often where our patience runs thin, when it doesn't quite work with what we agree with. It is one thing to talk about respecting authority in general. I think it's another thing to live under a decision you think is unwise, a decision that's unfair, or maybe even poorly explained. I think you probably know the feeling. You sit in a meeting, if you're at work, and you hear a plan that will create more work for everyone. That's sort of double-edged sword, I think, from my own experience. You might receive an email that changes your role without much thought for how it will land with that person. You watch someone with power make a call that affects your whole week, whether that's in work or not. It might affect your income, your peace of mind, and yet we would probably feel there's very little we can do about it. We feel powerless. And in those moments, some of us get probably quite angry, frustrated, annoyed. Some of us go quiet and we stew, we boil underneath as we hate these decisions. I would say even hate. We do go far as that, I think. We hate some decisions that are made that affect us and we have no direct control over. Maybe you're like me and you start rehearsing some sort of speech and scenario in your head. And you think, well, if I was doing this, what I would say this. And I would say this to them, and I would do this. And if I was in charge, I would do this. And you start playing all sorts of things out in your head. And then some of us, maybe we look for a way out. Some of us want to challenge everything immediately, whether that helps or not. We don't control, as the Bible says, we don't apply self-control. So we just unleash whatever was in there, we let it go, and we're going to let you have it. I'm going to let you have it. Make sure you know just how painful this is for me. And underneath those reactions, there is probably a deeper question. As a Christian, the questions may be, how do I live faithfully when I'm not the one in charge and I don't have control? How do I keep a soft heart when I feel, rightly or not, that I feel unheard? How do I honour people over me without pretending that they're always right? We certainly do not want to pretend that people are right, because that leads to dangerous things. Our society already falls to many things that we pretend are right because it gives us, it's just a peace with, gives us peace with everyone else. There is a line, most certainly. But how do we honour people in that way, rightly? When we look at Ecclesiastes 8, as we're looking at today, it does take us into this world. Solomon is writing about life under a king. But the pressure is not strange to us. This is not that distant from us. We still live under imperfect people with real power, and Solomon wants to teach us how to live wisely there. How do we continue to live wisely? Even if that's talking about a king, it is still rule. It is still someone has authority over you, whatever that looks like, a king, a government, or whatever. What he's not asking us to do is to pretend that every leader is good. He's not telling us that power never gets misused, because it clearly does. What he's doing is he's helping people who live under authority face a reality without becoming hard-hearted, without becoming restless or foolish. How do we navigate that carefully? So let's look at verse 1. And what Solomon does, he begins with two questions here. And he says, who is like the wise? Who knows the explanation of things? A person's wisdom brightens their face and changes its hard appearance. The first part of the verse reminds us that wisdom is rare. and valuable. Who is like the wise, he says? Who knows the explanation of things? What Solomon is not saying is, he's not saying wise people understand everything. He's saying that wisdom helps a person see more clearly than panic or pride does. So it's not about always being wise, it's wisdom. The Bible talks of wisdom as a sheep, but it's talking about something that you have, something that is available to you rather than being a wise person. God has it available to us every day, but it does help us see more clearly rather than going to panic or pride. And then he gives us this very human picture. Wisdom brightens a person's face. It changes a hard appearance. When we feel powerless under authority, our faces probably tell the story before our mouths do. You can most certainly, for most of us, you'll be able to read the mood that you are in by looking at someone's face. It is very difficult to not let the mood you're in, the emotions you're experiencing, come out to your face. It's just very difficult because you're thinking so much you don't even know what your face looks like unless you carry a mirror around with you all the time thinking, how do I look? Do I look smiley? I've always got... This is why what we don't want, and we talk about the pretending here, we certainly do not want Christians walking around smiling to the point that it's pretense, that we're faking it. Because the expectation of the world is, well, you're a Christian, you should just be happy all the time. In fact, and I've argued this before, knowing the truth of what the world is really like and who Jesus is would probably lead you, in some ways, to be more troubled and more disheartened because of the comparison. You see a broken world around you because Jesus has opened your eyes to it, and yet you can see the beauty of the cross and the amazing salvation of Jesus Christ at the same time. The grace and the mercy on all of us who have broken the world, who have caused sin towards God. But our face tells a story. We look tense. We might even look closed, like we don't want to be bothered by anyone. If it's really bad, we look like we're ready for a fight. I don't know now, but I used to, when I cut my hair, so I noticed a difference. It wasn't here, but I would notice a difference with certain people that I'd meet occasionally. And my hair was cut, they'd treat me with a bit more, hold on, what's he going to do today? With long hair, they're as soft as anything. It's really weird. Appearance matters. It's really weird to other people. I can't help. I like having my hair short. For some people, it changes their interaction with you. I know some people look like, and especially when you then say, you're talking about life and where you maybe come from, and you say, I grew up in Deptford, and they're like, whoa, hold on a minute. Here's a guy who looks almost like a skinhead, and he grew up in Deptford. And they stand back. I've seen this so many times. We look at the surface, we look at people and their faces, and we're worried that they might not be responsive to what we're about to say to them. Even if we say the right words, our whole manner can say, I'm against this, I'm against you, even if that person is not actually against you. I think we talked about this last week, excuse me. We talked about this last week. This idea that we do kind of tend to, whatever's burdening us, will probably take out on others and people around us to some degree or another. There is some degree we can't help that. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's very difficult to kind of compartmentalize everybody. You might be angry to some, I won't say righteous degree, but you might be right to be angry at someone. But actually, how do we say, well, this is the thing that's bothering me, but when I go and see others around me, my friends who haven't bothered me or made me angry, I'm going to be really nice. That's not how it works, is it? It tends to overflow. It tends to affect everybody around you, how we are. But Solomon says wisdom does something better. He says it softens us, not by making us weak, not by making us dishonest, but by settling us. A wise person can live under pressure without letting that pressure turn them harsh. And that's probably for everybody. I think probably everybody needs to hear that. It is possible to be factually right about something and still respond badly. It's possible to see a flaw in a decision and still carry yourself in a way that damages the trust between others. It's possible to disagree and still remain steady, respectful and clear-headed. We are called, certainly as Christians, when it comes to the gospel, conversations about the gospel. How do we avoid arguments, yet speak truth? It's very easy to be pulled into arguments and to start getting so pulled down that you're not talking about the gospel anymore. You're just talking about a couple of opinions that you have. Very easy to get pulled down into this. Think about how often our hardest moments with authority are made us worse by our own manner. The decision may already be difficult. And then we add sharp words, cold silence, sarcasm, whatever. You see where it drives you, these decisions that others make that affect your life. We then have one maybe out of 10 other reactions we could possibly have with people. It affects us. It affects us how we interact with people. Maybe we refuse to listen to an explanation to something that we may disagree with. And before long, the original issue is joined by a second problem. Now our heart is hard. And now we're displaying that for everyone to see. Now everyone's got to experience the mood that I'm in. But Solomon is not telling us to fake a smile. He's not telling us just to be happy for the sake of it. He's telling us that wisdom settles a person. And what it does is it keeps us from being ruled by the first rush of frustration. So in probably many sermons, the one thing that seems to be coming up, especially with Ecclesiastes, is taking this breath, taking this beat, just a moment, just take a breath before you say anything, before you make a judgment on something. He's saying, don't be ruled by the first rush of frustration. Wisdom helps us to stay present. It helps us to think clearly and respond in a way that does not destroy what still can be helped. Before Solomon talks about obeying a king, he talks about the kind of person you become while living under one. Wisdom starts in the heart and shows on your face. If our first response to authority is always hardness, we may need more than better arguments. We may need wisdom. That's what Solomon is inviting us to. So then Solomon moves to from the wise person to this person.